And I am here today with a very distinguished guest. His name is Isaac Prince Jeffery. I've known him for several years, and he's a personality who has worked in multiple global leading financial institutions. He's also highly qualified, technically competent person. He has a CISSP, he holds a CSP, he also holds C-Risk and CISM. And if my memory serves right, you were the CISM topper in Chennai. And what's unique about Jeffrey, I call him Jeff in short, he holds a CIA certified internal auditor certification, a very distinguished certification. And people tell me that's one of the most toughest exams for internal auditors. So he has this unique combination of looking at controls from an internal control perspective, security controls perspective, then also at the flavor of risk and compliance to it. Right. So he has held positions such as Information System Security Officer, Business Information Systems Officer, and also he has been head of risk and compliance. So that actually makes me very excited to have this conversation. And the conversation we are going to have today is about modern testing approaches. Right? There are different types of testing, and we're going to be focused on one unique topic. So there are several drivers, there are several challenges which we see day to day in terms of implementing the controls and also assessing the effectiveness of those controls. So Jeff, it's my pleasure to have you in this show today. And as we discussed, this is going to be a 3-part series. And what we are going to be doing right now is the first one of the 3-part series. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you, Sujit, and a warm welcome to all your subscribers. It's a pleasure to be here and to share my experience. So, in my close to 2-decade experience in cybersecurity, the initial portion of my career was focused on pen testing. So, I would like to add value to the discussion here. There is a saying in the pen testing community, right? So, if you don't do pen tests, someone else will do it for you. And initially, they'll do it to you for free, but then the bills will come after and you won't like the numbers, right? So, so in terms of pen testing, there are a lot of drivers, right? As you know, there are multiple types of pen tests, and the key one would be that as a cybersecurity professional, we are responsible for implementing security, and that is through controls. And you have controls across your enterprise, and to have visibility into how the controls are doing and to monitor them and to fine tune them, you need to have a proper pen test. And as CISOs, you have very finite resources, and whatever resources you get, you have to use it to your maximum ability. And every year, whenever you go asking for more money in your budget, the constant theme is to do more with less. And doing more with less doesn't mean you have to do more with mediocre tools, right? So this constant discussion on platformization in security, it doesn't mean you have to stick with a mediocre platform, because attackers are coming at you with everything that they've got. And they need to only find one weakness in your entire defenses. But whereas as a cybersecurity professional, you're tasked with the Herculean responsibility of looking at everything, right? So I would say it's tougher being a security professional today than it was 20 years ago, due to the proliferation of tools and how easy to just go and ask an AI LLM, right, how to hack. Although it might not immediately tell you, you impersonate a grandma and then you break through and you learn all the hacking skills. So the main one would be security controls, visibility and validation. The next would be how large would the blast radius be if there is a successful attack. Right? To assess that, you need to have a good pen testing framework. And in order to simulate that, you have this MITRE framework that most professionals use. And through the MITRE framework, across the various stages of the kill chain, how much would we be impacted, how quickly we would be impacted, right? So these are the key things a pen testing framework would help you understand. Apart from that, you have a ton of security investments that you do. And how do you prioritize which controls to ask for, right? Or which tools to ask for? So doing a proper pen test will highlight what are the weaker areas of your defenses that require higher investments compared to the others. Sometimes it might seem that you need a very costly investment to secure your company, but the pen test will show a side of your defenses where even minor process changes or behavior changes or less costly tooling can still improve your defenses by a large percentage, right? So highlighting that prioritization and triaging is very crucial, and that's what a pen test framework will help. Then we have this other interested parties like underwriters in insurance companies, where every year they are looking at, okay, how much will the premium go up? And when you highlight that you have a good pen testing framework and the fact that you're constantly looking at your enterprise security and fine tuning it adds value to your overall risk scoring. And it might bring your premium down if you highlight that you have good practices from a world-class perspective. And if you're doing any mergers and acquisitions, obviously you need to monitor whether the company that you're going to acquire is doing well on security. And during the acquisition phase, you need to keep a close tab on how their security is performing, right? Because if they get hit during your acquisition process, obviously the value of the acquisition will come down. So that is something it helps as well. Then you have the board and cybersecurity executives and management team who are tasked with maintaining the brand and reputation of the firm. So cybersecurity has been coming up as a hot topic in a lot of executive conversations because regulators are waking up, right? Over the last 5 years, we have seen heavy mandates from regulators, leading regulators, where they're coming up with new cybersecurity requirements. And so management teams are concerned. At the same time, clients are seeing it on the news every day, some firm getting hacked, and that concern will get relayed to management team, and hence they are on top of cybersecurity as well. And finally, regulatory compliance, right? So you have a lot of regulators in your respective industry verticals who are heavily invested in ensuring that the industry is secure. So these are the key things that goes on in the mind when you have to choose a right pen testing framework and approach.
Absolutely, Jeff. I mean, you very well articulated and laid the context. A couple of points to emphasize, right? And I think we are talking about interested parties. So interested parties are regulators, your investors, your stakeholders as in terms of customers, your management, employees, and your whole ecosystem. Likewise, the adversaries, the threat actors are also an interested party, right? So as you rightly said, who finds the gap first? Us as custodians of the infrastructure and the information, or our adversaries? If they do, then it's going to be a big challenge because today they may harvest and decrypt later. So which means we may not even know that there is a risk which has already materialized, but it has not manifested. So that's a challenge, right? So in terms of, you also highlighted that there could be things which we can do it in a very simple way. Sometimes we say, hey, we don't need high investment, but doing these tests would also help us review our existing processes, maybe look at the ability of the people to perform on the job, maybe enhance the training, or de-risk in some cases. Right? So that you probably may decide to exit some of those processes. So I guess the penetration testing per se gives you a good visibility in terms of how well you're stacked in terms of your security architecture and your segregation. Jeff, I mean, just continuing this conversation, right, on staying focused on the security testing and especially penetration testing, how should the team composition be? Or what should be the team's
So,
composition be? Go ahead, Jeff.
sure. So, traditionally, people in security like to have color-coded versions of truth. So we have like black hat, white hat, and all that stuff, gray hats. So similarly to pen testing as well, we have certain color codes. Primarily, you'll have the red team, which is an offensive security team, right? So all they do is attack, 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 right? And they'll think of creative ways to break through the defenses, and essentially they put on the hat of an attacker and they visualize everything on how to break things, right? So if you have been a kid and you love breaking apart toys and your TV as well, so a red team would be a good choice. And so you would be coming up with scripts, you would use the latest tools, even free tools or code available on different platforms. You would be skilled with cleaning up the code and converting it into an attack script and running it on your environment, right? So they would try to exploit it and get in, and they would highlight their attack evidences to prove that there is an issue and get people to fix it. That's the key focus of a red team. The next would be the blue team. So the blue team is mostly people who are monitoring the system, who are tasked with implementing the controls, right? It would be either the IT team, IT security, or even portions of security administrators who are responsible for defending, right? Initially, we had attacking, now we have defending. Then finally, there are multiple other colors as well, but I'll keep the focus to another key two. Next would be purple. Purple, like if you mix red and blue, you get purple, right? So it's a mix of attackers and defenders where they work together to see how to better implement security in the firm. So they would take learnings from red team exercises, at the same time, see what kind of monitoring practices need to be fine-tuned to deliver better security outcomes. Then we have the white team, which is primarily focused on setting the rules of engagement from an overall security testing framework perspective and coming up with good scenarios for control testing and learning from any findings and improving controls, right? We have multiple other flavors of these teams as well, but these four would be the top ones that you would think of when designing a structure for a pen test team.
Absolutely. Jeff, I think you set the context very well, which means we've laid the foundation, and we can now look forward to doing this second edition of the series, right? So, but before that, right, I would, in concluding today's session, I just would like to summarize this, right? So one, this penetration testing should be part of your security framework. I think that's the messaging which we are trying to convey to our viewers, right? So how do we know that the controls implemented are effective and it is delivering what it is supposed to deliver? If a control is failing, how quickly do we detect and remediate it? And I think that's one part of the story. The second part of the story is the skill sets or the people part of it. And you beautifully articulated in the form of colors, right? So this, in other words, this profession is very colorful, right? And I think that's where a lot of people, take off to being pen testers, or they call themselves ethical hackers, bug bounty professionals. They call themselves in different names, and they take wear different hats, right? So I mean, there's always this debate. I think we will definitely come back and talk about this. The debate is, which one should you do first? Red, blue, purple, whatever, right? So that's another discussion we would come back and talk about. But for the moment, I think it has given the viewers an idea in terms of what they should be doing in terms of strengthening their security framework. So, Jeff, thank you so much for taking time to talk about the testing side of the story, and very specifically penetration testing. So I look forward to seeing you in the second edition of this series.
Thanks for having me, Sujit.